So, my community service ranges from being a court-appointed special advocate to children who are in DHS custody to the secretary of the board of the Root Cellar, which is an inner-city mission in Portland on Munjoy Hill. And, of course, I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Amy Volk, as you mentioned. Proud to live in the state of Maine, proud to live in Scarborough. I love this town. We've been here for 10 years. And it's just a fabulous family-centered community. And our current representation does not reflect the family-centered community that we are. So I'd like to replace him and be a part of the change that's coming to Augusta.
Well, that was well said, Amy Volk, and I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to the day after election when I can then address you as the Honorable Representative Amy Volk.
That would be great, Kevin.
You'll be honorable whether it's true or not.
Okay.
In your case, it will be true, because I've had a privilege of meeting you and talking to you eye to eye, but I believe the title of honorable should be more carefully applied to the people who win office and take the oath that they don't then live up to regarding their rule book or the Constitution of the state of Maine and the federal Constitution. I'd like everybody who runs and win to actually know what the rules are before they start trying to pass laws.
Yeah. Well, I'm a person of my word. I'm a person of integrity. Anyone who knows Derek and myself, and we're pretty well known around this town, knows that if we say we're going to do something, if we say we're going to be there, it happens. And, that's the way we live our lives, and that's the way we intend to keep living our lives, and that's the way I'll serve in Augusta if I'm elected.
Absolutely. Now, but Amy Volk, and I keep saying your last name so everybody listening to this knows the name, especially if they're in Scarborough, so they don't know who to vote for. That's VOLK. Yeah. It's terrible when you can't remember what you were going to say. Your campaign is still new, and happy Mother's Day to you. Before I forget to say that, you're welcome. Is there anything anybody can do if they're hearing this conversation in the greater Scarborough area that they could help you with your campaign if they want to get on board? How do they get in touch with you? How does that work?
Certainly. They can become a fan of mine on Facebook. Mm-hmm. They can certainly look me up in the phone book and give me a call. We're in the phone book. Also on Twitter. And AmyVolkforHouse.com is under construction right now. Mm-hmm. Be happy to hear from anyone who would like to give me a hand. Currently going to get a group of people together to make phone calls to the other Republicans in my district and encourage them to vote yes on one. Mm-hmm. Coming up here in June. And, we also need to vote in Scarborough on whether or not, I believe it's statewide, whether or not we're going to continue to be able to vote on our school budget, which is a very important ability for citizens to have to ratify your school budget. Mm-hmm. So love to have anybody who wants to give me a hand, and the more the merrier, the quicker it'll go.
Excellent. Sounds like you have a great good plan. Brian, you have something?
I do. First of all, I wanted to say, thank you for dealing with a child with Asperger's. That's a big strain on a family. In fact, Kevin and I, a few weeks ago, we did a benefit concert in South Portland for the Autism Society of Maine, and we raised quite a bit of money through Team Solar.
Wow.
And that's actually where my question comes from. Mm-hmm. Department of Health and Human Services and Education make up 80% of our budget. And obviously budget is a huge issue right now. And if you become elected, are you going to look into people who have developmental disabilities? Because that's one of the big things that the Department of Health and Human Services covers. And mm-hmm. that is underfunded. Ironically enough, that's where we need more money because they're not exactly taken care of very well. Autism, as you well know, has a lot more questions than answers about it. And one of the big things is about schooling for people with autism, because a lot of them have a high enough IQ to not be considered special needs, but yet at the same time they have different things that make it so that they are not socially acceptable. So do you have any angle on that, any input on that?
Brian, thank you. That's an excellent question, and I can tell you know what you're talking about. My son definitely fits into that category. If you were to meet him right now, you would not know. If you were to spend some time with him, you might hear him say some strange things, do some bizarre things, and you might think he's a behavior problem, a product of poor parenting. And, in fact, he often looks like he's a product of poor parenting. He's not. My other children are extraordinarily well-behaved. But what I feel we need to do, quite honestly, is, and what my husband and I were fortunate enough to be able to do privately, is to take him out of the public school system for a period of time. And we actually paid to send him to a special program that was just for people with Asperger's or similar disabilities. We were fortunate enough to do that. Most people are not fortunate enough to be able to afford that. The whole problem with children like him is least restrictive environment. That least restrictive environment rule, which I believe is a federal rule, makes it very, very difficult. It kind of ties the hands of the public school systems because they need to keep these kids in the public schools, in the classroom as much as possible. And these kids really benefit much more from a tailored program in a small environment. And so I would love to see school districts band together and send these kids to a separate program. And if you get, the other trick is you've got to get the parents to agree to that. You can't just, parents, most of the time, by the time they understand that their child's not benefiting from being in a real classroom as much as they think, because there's a mourning process involved once your child is diagnosed, because they look normal, they normally speak normal. It's not like the autistic child who's nonverbal. And so the parents need to understand from a young age their child would be better off being with other children who have similar needs. And then the students can be taught the social skills that they need. They can be taught the academics in a smaller environment where they're really going to excel. And then they can be placed back into the regular classroom when they're older, perhaps, because they've then gained all of these skills at the younger years. The trick is getting the parents to understand the benefit of that in the early ages, where the kids are really going to benefit. Now, he wasn't diagnosed until second grade, so we didn't even have that ability, and then nobody even had heard of Asperger's hardly. It's a much more common diagnosis these days with younger kids. So, I think he would have benefited tremendously if we could have gotten him those services in a smaller environment when he was a lot younger, and then we wouldn't have been pulling him out in middle school and again in high school at great cost. My son actually spent a year and a half at Spurwink in an out-of-district placement, which was extraordinarily expensive for the town of Scarborough, and we felt absolutely horrible about it. But they could not handle his behavior, and it had reached that point. And then we chose to take him out for a year and a half in high school at our own expense, which was also very expensive. But and he's still not where he should be at 18 and a half years old.
No, I can only begin to understand what it is. Amy Volk, Republican candidate, Maine Legislature, District 127, Scarborough. It's under construction, but you can go to www.amyvolkforhouse.com, or you can Facebook her. If people who know how to Facebook, I guess, could find you, they use your name.
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Thank you for taking the time. As the campaign moves forward, I'd like to get you back on and talk more about what you want to do when you get there. You're a great guest, Amy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin and Brian.
Very good. Thank you.
Great day.
We'll be back with Dean's Contrast next. Stay with us.